The ship was falling apart around him. Han pulled hard on the control stick, but it did nothing. The engines were dead. The lights were flashing red. Warning sounds filled the small cockpit, and smoke was coming from somewhere behind him. "Come on," he said through his teeth, "just a little more." But the planet below did not care about his wishes. It pulled his broken ship down with strong gravity, and could only watch as the ground came closer and closer. He was a simple cargo pilot. He moved goods between space stations for a small company back on Earth. This was supposed to be an easy job. Fly to Station 7, pick up some medical supplies, fly back home. Simple, safe, boring. But something had gone wrong. A strange energy wave had hit his ship near an unknown planet. His systems had failed one by one, and now he was falling toward a world that was not on any human map. The crash was violent. Felt his body slam against the seat straps. Metal screamed as the ship broke apart. Then everything went black. When he opened his eyes, he was not in his ship anymore. He was lying on a cold floor made of dark stone. Strange blue lights glowed from the walls around him. The air smelled different here, like flowers mixed with something sharp and metallic. Tried to move, but his body hurt everywhere. He managed to sit up slowly and looked around. He was in a large room. No, not a room. A hall. A massive hall with pillars that reached up into darkness. The pillars were covered in strange symbols that glowed with soft purple light. And he was not alone. Creatures stood around him in a circle. They were tall, much taller than any human. Their skin was pale blue, almost like ice. They had 4 arms each and long silver hair that flowed down their backs. Their eyes were large and completely black, like deep pools of night. His heart began to beat very fast. One of the creatures stepped forward. It wore armor made of something that looked like black glass. It spoke in a language he did not understand, but then a device on his wrist buzzed. His translator, still working somehow, began to process the words. "The alien is awake," the creature said. "Inform the Empress." Empress? That word made stomach feel cold. 2 of the creatures grabbed his arms and pulled him to his feet. Their 4-armed grip was strong and knew he could not fight them. He was just a cargo pilot. He had never been a soldier. He had never even been in a real fight. They walked him through long corridors. Everywhere looked, he saw more of these beings. They stared at him with their dark eyes. Some whispered to each other. Others just watched in silence. Finally, they reached 2 massive doors. The doors were made of the same black glass as the armor, and they were carved with images of stars and planets. 2 guards pushed the doors open and was brought inside. The throne room was the largest space he had ever seen. It could have held 100 human ships inside it. Thousands of the blue-skinned aliens stood along the walls, all of them looking at him. And at the end of the room, sitting on a throne made of crystal and shadow, was the Empress. She was taller than the others. Her skin was darker blue, like the deep ocean. She wore a crown made of living light that floated above her head. Her 4 arms rested on the arms of her throne, and her black eyes looked at like he was an insect. "Bring him closer," she said. Her voice was cold and powerful. The guards pushed forward until he was at the bottom of the steps that led to her throne. So the Empress said slowly, "This is a human." Did not know what to say. He just stood there trying not to shake. "We have heard stories about your kind," the Empress continued. "Soft bodies, short lives, weak in every way." She leaned forward slightly. "And yet you spread across the stars like a disease. You survive where you should not. You fight when you should run. You refuse to die when death is certain." Swallowed hard. "I am just a pilot," he said. His voice came out rough. "I meant no harm to your world. My ship crashed. If you let me go, I will leave and never return." The Empress laughed. It was not a kind laugh. "Let you go," she said. "Oh no, little human, you are far too valuable for that." She raised one of her hands, and the crowd parted. A figure walked forward from the shadows at the side of the room. It was a young female of their species. She was smaller than the Empress, with lighter blue skin and silver hair that was braided with small glowing gems. She moved with grace, like water flowing over stones. Her eyes, unlike the others, had tiny spots of silver light in the darkness. "This is my daughter," the Empress said, "Princess." The princess stopped near. She looked at him with curiosity, tilting her head slightly to one side. Noticed that her expression was different from the others. There was no hate in her eyes, no coldness, just interest. "He is smaller than I expected," said softly. Her voice was like music. "They all are," the Empress replied. "But you have made your choice and I will honor it." Felt confused. Choice? What choice? The Empress smiled, showing teeth that were sharp like knives. "My daughter has been watching your kind for many cycles," she said. "She has studied your history, your wars, your strange way of living, and she has decided that she wants a human for herself." Confusion grew deeper. "I do not understand." The Empress stood up from her throne. She walked down the steps slowly until she was right in front of him. She was so tall that had to look up to see her face. "My daughter likes you human," she said, "and you are wed to her tomorrow." The words hit like a physical blow. He took a step back, but the guards grabbed him again. "Wed," he said. "You mean married. I cannot marry your daughter. I do not even know her. I'm not even the same species." "These things do not matter to us," the Empress said calmly. "In the Empire, the royal family takes what they desire. My daughter desires you. Therefore, you will be hers." Looked at the princess. She was watching him with those strange silver-spotted eyes. "This is madness," said. "You cannot force someone to marry." The Empress laughed again. "Force? Who said anything about force? You will marry my daughter willingly, human, because if you do not, I will destroy your home planet. Earth, yes, I know where it is. My fleet can reach it in 3 cycles." Felt his blood go cold. "You would not," he whispered. "I would," the Empress said simply. "For my daughter I would burn 1,000 worlds." She turned and walked back to her throne. "Take him to his chambers. Let him rest. Tomorrow will be a busy day." The guards began to drag away. He struggled, but it was useless. As they pulled him toward the doors, he looked back one more time. Princess was still watching him, and on her face, for just a moment, he thought he saw something like sadness. Then the doors closed, and was alone with his guards and his fear, wondering how a simple cargo run had become a nightmare he could not wake from. The room they put in was beautiful. It had soft floors covered in something like silk. The walls were painted with pictures of strange landscapes, purple mountains and green skis. A large bed sat in the center, bigger than any bed had ever seen. There were bowls of food on a table, fruits and meats that he did not recognize. But it was still a prison. Had checked the door many times. It was locked from the outside. The windows, if he could call them that, showed only the night sky of this alien world. 3 moons hung in the darkness, each one a different color: blue, red, gold. He sat on the edge of the bed and put his head in his hands. How had this happened? Just yesterday he was complaining about how boring his life was, flying the same routes, eating the same food, seeing the same faces. He had wanted adventure. He had wanted something different. Now he would give anything to go back to that boring life. A sound made him look up. The door was opening. He jumped to his feet, ready to fight if he had to. But the figure that entered was not a guard. It was Princess. She was alone. No guards followed her. She wore a simple robe now, not the formal dress from before. Her silver hair was loose, falling around her shoulders like a waterfall of light. In her 4 hands she carried a small glowing orb. "May I come in?" she asked quietly. Stared at her. "You are already in." She smiled slightly at that. "True, but I wanted to ask anyway. My mother believes in taking. I prefer to ask." She walked into the room and set the orb on the table. It floated there, giving off a soft, warm light. Then she sat down in one of the chairs, folding two of her hands in her lap while the other two rested on the arms of the chair. "Please sit," she said. "I wish to talk with you." "Did not move. Talk about what? About how your mother threatened to destroy my planet. About how I am being forced to marry someone I do not know." "Yes," said simply, "about all of that." Her honesty surprised him. He had expected excuses, lies. Instead, she just agreed with him. Slowly sat down in the chair across from her. He kept his eyes on her, watching for any sign of danger. "I want you to understand something," said. "I did not ask my mother to threaten your world. That was her idea. She believes that power is the only language the universe understands." "And you do not believe that?" asked. "No," said. "I believe that understanding is stronger than power. Connection is stronger than fear." She leaned forward slightly. "I have been studying humans for 20 cycles, your ships, your messages, your history, everything my people could find about you." "Why?" asked. "Why are humans so interesting to you?" His dark eyes seemed to shine with the silver spots in them. "Because you are impossible," she said. "By every rule of nature you should not exist. Your bodies are soft. Your lives are short. You cannot survive in cold or heat. You need constant food and water. You cannot see well in the dark. You cannot hear very far. You are slow. You are weak." She paused. "And yet you conquered your world. You reached the stars. You built empires and then built them again when they fell. You fight creatures 10 times your size and win. You survive things that should kill you. You refuse to give up, even when giving up is the smart choice." Listened in silence. "My people are strong," continued. "We have 4 arms. We can see in darkness. We live for 500 cycles. We are fast and powerful. And yet, we have ruled only one small part of the galaxy for 1,000 generations." She pointed at, "Your people have been in space for less than 300 cycles, and already you are everywhere, growing, spreading, changing everything you touch." "So you want to study me," said, "like an animal in a cage." "No," said firmly. "I want to understand you. I want to learn from you. And yes, I want to be close to you." She looked down at her hands. "In my culture, the royal family must marry for power. We choose partners who will make us stronger, give us better children, build our empire larger." She looked up again. "I am tired of power. I have seen what it does to people. It makes them cold, cruel, like my mother." "Your mother seems more than cold," said. "She seems dangerous." "She is," agreed. "She has destroyed 3 civilizations in her lifetime, entire species gone because they would not bow to her." The princess's voice became soft. "I do not want to become like her. I thought maybe, if I was close to a human, I would learn a different way." Felt his anger changing into something else. Confusion, maybe, or curiosity. "Why me?" he asked. "Of all the humans in the galaxy, why did you choose a simple cargo pilot?" Smiled. "Because you were simple. You are not a warrior or a leader. You are just a person living their life. I watched you through our sensors for a long time before your ship crashed. I saw how you talked to your ship like it was a friend. I saw how you sang songs when you thought no one could hear. I saw how you shared your food with the small creatures that lived in your cargo hold." She stood up and walked to the window. The 3 moons painted colors on her blue skin. "You are kind," she said. "That is rare in this universe." Did not know what to say. He had never thought of himself as special. He was just a pilot who loved his old ship and fed the space mice that lived behind his engine. "But I did not choose to come here," he said finally. "I did not choose to marry you. Does that not matter?" Turned to face him. Her expression was sad. "It matters to me," she said. "That is why I came here tonight, to tell you the truth, to ask for your help." "My help?" asked. "How can I help you?" Walked closer to him. She stopped a few steps away, respecting his space. "Tomorrow there will be a ceremony," she said. "The wedding. But before the wedding, the other males who wanted to marry me will challenge you. It is our tradition. They will demand a trial to prove you are not worthy." "What kind of trial?" asked, feeling fear grow in his chest. "The trial of flames," said. "It is a test of survival. You must enter the fire caves and stay inside for one full rotation of our planet. If you survive, you prove you are worthy. If you do not survive—" She did not finish. "I die," said. "Yes." Laughed, but there was no happiness in it. "So I marry you or I die trying. Wonderful choices." "There is another choice," said. "You could run. I can help you escape tonight. I can give you a ship and a map to human space." Looked at her with surprise. "You would let me go?" "Yes," said. "I do not want a prisoner. I want a partner. If you stay, I want it to be because you chose to stay." She held out one of her hands. In it was a small device that looked like a key. "This will open any door in the palace," she said. "The ship is in the northern hangar. I have already prepared it." Looked at the key. He looked at. He thought about Earth, about his family, about his boring, safe life. And he thought about what the Empress had said, that she would destroy his world if he refused. "If I run," he said slowly, "what will your mother do?" His face became pale. "I do not know, maybe nothing, maybe everything." Closed his eyes. He was not a hero. He was not brave. He was just a cargo pilot who fed space mice and sang bad songs alone in his cockpit. But he could not risk billions of lives just to save his own. He pushed the key back toward. "I will stay," he said. "I will do your trial." His eyes widened. "You would die for people who do not even know you exist." "Maybe," said, "or maybe I will surprise everyone." He gave her a small smile. "After all, humans are impossible. You said so yourself." For a long moment just looked at him. Then slowly she smiled back. "Yes," she said, "perhaps you will." She took his hand gently in one of hers. Her skin was cool, but her touch was soft. "Then let me tell you about the trial," she said. "And maybe, just maybe, we can find a way for you to survive." They talked until the 3 moons set and the strange sun of this world began to rise. And somewhere in those hours, realized that Princess was not his enemy. She might even be his only hope. The morning came too fast. Had not slept at all. After left, he had sat by the window and watched the sky change colors. This planet had a strange sun, pale green instead of yellow, and it made everything look like a dream. Or a nightmare. Guards came for him when the sun was fully up. They did not speak to him. They just opened the door and waited for him to follow. Thought about fighting, about running, but he remembered his choice from the night before. He would face this for Earth, for everyone back home. They led him through the palace again. This time, they went outside into a massive courtyard. Thousands of them were already there, standing in ordered groups. They all wore formal clothes of black and silver. Their faces were calm, but their dark eyes followed with hunger. At the far end of the courtyard, the Empress sat on a smaller version of her throne. Princess stood beside her, wearing a white dress that flowed like clouds around her body. She did not look at. She kept her eyes forward, her face showing nothing. Was brought to the center of the courtyard. The guards made him stand on a raised platform where everyone could see him. "People of the Empire," the Empress said. Her voice was not loud, but somehow it reached every ear. "Today my daughter takes a husband, a human." The crowd murmured, heard anger in some voices, confusion in others. A few sounded amused, like this was a joke. "But before this can happen," the Empress continued, "tradition must be followed. Any male who wishes to challenge the human may step forward now." For a moment nothing happened. Then from the crowd, 3 figures walked forward. They were huge. Even by standards, these 3 were giants. They stood nearly twice height, with muscles that bulged under their armor. Their 4 arms were thick as tree trunks. Their black eyes burned with hate as they looked at the small human on the platform. "I am Lord," the first one said. He had scars across his face, marks from many battles. I have conquered 12 worlds in the Empress's name. This creature is not worthy to touch the princess's shadow. I am General Hoon, the second one said. His voice was like rocks breaking. I have killed more enemies than there are stars in the sky. This human is an insect. I am Prince of the Southern Reaches, the third one said. Unlike the others, he spoke calmly, but his calm was somehow more frightening than their anger. I have loved the princess since we were children. I will not let this outsider steal what is rightfully mine. The Empress looked pleased. 3 challengers, the trial of flames will decide. She stood up and raised her hands. The crowd went silent. The human will enter the fire caves at midday. He must survive inside for 1 full rotation. If he walks out alive, he proves his worth. If he dies, she smiled. Then the challengers will fight among themselves for my daughter's hand. The 3 giants laughed. Lord pointed at with 1 thick finger. Save us the trouble, human, he said. Just die quickly. Wanted to say something brave, something clever, but his mouth was dry and his heart was beating too fast. He just stood there, small and alone, while they prepared his death. A guard grabbed his arm. Come, we will prepare you for the trial. They took him to a small building at the edge of the courtyard. Inside, there was a table with strange equipment on it. Armor, it looked like, breathing masks, protective gear. But none of it was human-sized. This is the trial equipment, the guard said. You may use whatever you wish. Looked at the gear. The smallest piece of armor was bigger than his entire body. The breathing masks would not fit his face. Nothing here was made for him. This is a joke, he said quietly. The trial is not a joke, the guard said. His voice was cold. It is sacred. Wanted to argue, but what was the point? They wanted him to fail. They expected him to die. The equipment being wrong was just part of the plan. He picked up a small knife from the table. It was meant for cutting food, not fighting, but it was the only thing he could actually hold. He also took a piece of cloth that he could wrap around his face. The guard made a sound that might have been a laugh. That is all you take. It is all I can use, said. The guard shrugged his 4 shoulders. Your funeral, human. They led him to the edge of the courtyard where a path went down into the ground. The path was made of black stone, and heat rose from it like waves. Even from here, could feel the warmth touching his face. A crowd had gathered to watch. The 3 challengers stood at the front, their arms crossed, their faces full of satisfaction. Behind them she was watching him with those silver-spotted eyes. Her lips moved slightly, and though he could not hear her, he thought she was saying, "Stay alive." The Empress appeared beside him. She leaned down until her face was close to his. "Any last words, human?" she asked. "Any regrets?" Looked up at her. Fear was burning in his chest, but he refused to show it. "Just one regret," he said, "that I will not see your face when I walk out of there alive." The Empress's eyes widened slightly. Then she laughed loud and long. "Oh, I like you, human," she said. "What a shame you will be dead soon." She stepped back and raised her hand. "Let the trial of flames begin." Guards pushed toward the path. He stumbled but caught himself. Then, taking a deep breath of the cooler air, he began to walk down into the caves. The heat grew stronger with every step. The walls of the cave started to glow with orange and red light. Could see cracks in the stone where liquid fire flowed like slow rivers. The air became thick and hard to breathe. He wrapped the cloth around his face to filter out the smoke. It helped a little, not much. The path went deeper and deeper. Soon, the entrance was just a small point of light far above him. The cave opened into a massive chamber filled with pillars of flame that shot up from the ground. Pools of liquid rock bubbled and hissed. The temperature was so high that felt his skin burning just from being near. This was impossible. No human could survive in here for a full rotation. They had sent him to die. But remembered what had told him the night before. They were resistant to heat, but even they could only survive in certain parts of the caves. The deeper areas were deadly to everyone. If could find a cooler spot, a place where air flowed in from outside, he might have a chance. He began to explore, moving carefully between the fire pillars. The ground was hot enough to burn through his boots, so he hopped from rock to rock, looking for cooler surfaces. Hours passed, or what felt like hours. Time was strange in the caves. The heat made his head spin. His throat was dry. His eyes stung from the smoke. Several times he almost gave up, almost lay down and let the fire take him. But each time he thought of Earth. He thought of his mother, who still lived in the small house where he grew up. He thought of his friends who were probably wondering why he had not come home yet. He thought of who had tried to help him escape. And he kept moving. Finally he found it, a crack in the cave wall where cool air was flowing in. It was not much, just a thin stream of breathable air, but it was enough. Pressed himself against the crack and breathed deeply. The air was sweet and cool. It felt like drinking water after days in a desert. He had found his survival spot. Now he just had to stay here for one full rotation. Sat down with his back against the wall. The rock was still hot, but not burning hot. He could survive this. Above him, in the palace, he knew they were waiting for news of his death. The three challengers were probably already planning their fights against each other. But Han was not dead. Not yet. And if human history had taught the universe anything, it was that humans did not give up easily. He closed his eyes and began to count the seconds, waiting for the rotation to end, refusing to die in this alien hell. Because that was what humans did. They survived. The hours in the fire caves were the longest of his life. He stayed pressed against the crack in the wall, breathing the thin stream of cool air. But even here, safety was not complete. The cave kept changing. Fire pillars would suddenly shoot up from new places. Pools of liquid rock would overflow and spread across the floor. The heat came in waves, sometimes bearable, sometimes so strong that felt his skin blistering. And there were things living in the caves. First saw them after what felt like 6 hours. Creatures made of stone and fire, crawling along the walls and ceiling. They had no eyes that he could see, but they could sense him somehow. They moved toward him slowly, testing, curious. The first one that got too close, cut with his small knife. The blade broke against its stone skin, but the creature backed away. It had not expected resistance. After that, they kept their distance, but they never left. They circled around like hunters waiting for their prey to weaken. Time passed. His body began to fail. First, his throat became so dry that swallowing felt like eating broken glass. He had no water. The only liquid in the caves was fire itself. Then his skin started to peel. The heat was cooking him slowly, layer by layer. His clothes were ruined, burned, and torn. The cloth around his face fell apart, leaving nothing to filter the smoke. His vision blurred. His thoughts became confused. He forgot where he was. He forgot why he was there. He saw things that were not real. His mother standing in front of him, calling him home. His ship, whole and beautiful, waiting to take him to the stars. But each time he started to drift away, something pulled him back. A memory of his voice. Humans are impossible. They refuse to die when death is certain. Would not prove her wrong. He forced himself to stay awake, to stay focused, to keep breathing. Every breath was pain, but he kept breathing. Every heartbeat was a struggle, but his heart kept beating. The stone creatures moved closer as he weakened. He could see them at the edge of his vision, waiting for him to fall, but refused to fall. He started talking to himself, singing the old songs he used to sing in his cockpit, telling stories to no one, anything to keep his mind working. There was once a pilot named, he whispered through cracked lips. He was not brave, he was not strong. He was just a man who loved his old ship and fed the mice in his cargo hold. But when the universe tried to kill him, he said no. He said no because that is what humans do. We say no to death. We say no to giving up. We say no to the darkness. His voice faded, the song died in his throat, but still he did not fall. Somewhere above, in the palace, things were happening that could not see. The Empress was growing impatient. The rotation was almost complete and the human was still alive. Her sensors showed his heartbeat, weak but steady, still coming from deep in the caves. Impossible, Lord said. He was packing back and forth in the throne room. No creature can survive that long in the fire caves. Your sensors must be broken. My sensors are perfect, the Empress said coldly. The human is alive. General Hoon slammed one of his fists against a pillar. Send me in there. I will finish him myself. That would violate the sacred trial, Prince said. His voice was calm, but there was worry in his dark eyes. If we interfere, we dishonor ourselves. Stood silently beside her mother's throne. Inside, her heart was racing, was still alive. Somehow, against all odds, he was still alive. The Empress looked at her daughter. You chose an interesting creature. I am almost impressed. He is human, said softly. They are all interesting. The rotation ended. A bell rang through the palace, loud and deep. The sound traveled down into the caves, through the fire and stone, reaching even the deepest chambers. Heard it. His eyes, which had been closed, snapped open. The rotation was over. He had survived. Now he just had to walk out. Moving was almost impossible. His legs did not want to work. His body screamed at him to stay still, to rest, to sleep. But sleeping meant dying, so forced himself up. The stone creatures attacked. They had been waiting for this moment, when he was weakest, when he had to move through their territory. They came at him from all sides, their fire bodies burning bright. But was no longer thinking clearly. His mind was somewhere else, floating above his broken body. And in that strange state, he felt no fear. He moved through the creatures like water through rocks. When one reached for him, he was already somewhere else. When another blocked his path, he found a way around. His body knew things his mind had forgotten. Reflexes took over. Survival instinct, pure and simple. The creatures could not catch him. Climbed. He fell and climbed again. He crawled over rocks that burned his hands. He jumped over streams of liquid fire. He kept moving toward the light he could see far above him. The path seemed longer going up than it had going down. Every step was a mountain. Every breath was a battle, but did not stop. And finally, he saw the exit. Sunlight, cool air, the sounds of a crowd waiting. Pulled himself up the last few steps and stumbled out of the fire caves. The courtyard was full of people. Thousands had come to watch the human die. Instead, they watched him walk out alive. Silence fell over the crowd, complete, total silence. Stood there in the sunlight. His clothes were burned away. His skin was red and blistered. His hair was gone, burned off in the heat. He looked barely human anymore. But he was alive. He raised his head and looked at the Empress on her throne. He could not speak. His throat was too damaged, but he did not need words. His survival spoke for him. Lord stepped forward. This is a trick. He must have cheated somehow. There is no cheating in the fire caves, Prince said quietly. He was staring at with something like wonder. I have done the trial myself. There is no way to cheat. He survived honestly. General Hoon said nothing. He just looked at the small, burned human and for the first time in his life felt something like fear. The Empress slowly stood up. She walked down from her throne and crossed the courtyard until she stood in front of. You should be dead, she said. Tried to smile. It hurt too much, but he tried. The Empress stared at him for a long moment. Then she did something no one expected. She bowed her head. The trial of flames is complete, she announced. Her voice carried across the silent courtyard. The human has proven his worth. He will marry my daughter. The crowd exploded into noise. Some were angry, some were confused. Some, mostly the younger ones, were cheering. But did not hear any of it. His vision was going dark. His body had finally reached its limit. He felt himself falling. Strong arms caught him. 4 arms, cool blue skin against his burned body. "I told you," he whispered with the last of his strength. "Humans are impossible." Then everything went black. When he woke up, he was in a soft bed. His body was wrapped in strange bandages that felt cool and soothing. The pain was still there, but distant, like it was happening to someone else. Was sitting beside him, holding one of his hands in 2 of hers. "You are awake," she said. Relief filled her voice. "How long?" managed to ask. 3 days. Our healers worked on you constantly. They said any other creature would have died from your injuries," she smiled. "But you are human." Closed his eyes. "The wedding." "It has been delayed until you recover," said. "Even my mother agreed that a groom should be able to stand at his own ceremony." Laughed weakly. "That is kind of her." Smile faded slightly. "She is not kind, but she respects strength, and you showed her something no one has ever shown her before." "What is that?" Squeezed his hand gently. "That humans are not weak, that your power is not in your bodies but in your will, in your refusal to accept the impossible." Looked at her. Even through his blurry vision, even through his pain, he could see the light in her silver-spotted eyes. "So what happens now?" he asked. Leaned closer. "Now you rest, you heal, and when you are ready we will be married, not as prisoner and captor but as partners, as equals." She touched his face gently with one cool hand. "Welcome to the Empire, Han. I think you are going to change everything." 2 weeks passed before could walk again. The healers were amazed by his recovery. They had expected him to take months to heal, if he healed at all. Instead, his body started repairing itself at a speed they had never seen before. "Your species is strange," the head healer told him one day. She was an old with faded blue skin and kind eyes. "You break so easily, but you fix yourselves so fast. It is like you were designed to get hurt and survive." Smiled at that. "Humans have a saying, what does not kill us makes us stronger." The healer made a sound of disbelief. "That is not how biology works." "Maybe not for you," said, "but for us it is true." His skin healed. His hair began to grow back. The burns faded into scars that they found fascinating. They had never seen scars before. Their own bodies healed perfectly or not at all. Visited him every day. She brought him food from Earth that her servants had found somehow. Strange versions of rice and vegetables, grown on alien worlds but close enough to comfort him. She sat with him for hours, teaching him the language, telling him stories about her world. And slowly, something changed between them. Stopped thinking of as his captor. He stopped thinking of the marriage as a trap. He started seeing her as a person. A lonely princess trapped by tradition and duty, just like he was trapped by circumstance. She was kind, she was curious. She laughed at his jokes, even the bad ones. She asked endless questions about Earth, about humans, about everything. And when she looked at him with those silver-spotted eyes, felt something warm in his chest that had nothing to do with healing. The day of the wedding arrived on a morning with clear purple skis. Stood in front of a mirror, wearing the formal clothes they had made for him. They were strange, flowing robes of white and silver, but they had been adjusted to fit his 2-armed human body. On his chest was a symbol, a fire surrounded by a human hand, the mark of a flame survivor. A knock came at his door. He opened it to find General Hoon standing outside. His body went tense. He had not forgotten that this was one of the males who wanted him dead. But Hoon did not look angry. He looked uncertain. "I came to speak with you," the general said, "before the ceremony." Stepped aside to let him in. He kept one eye on the massive alien at all times. Hoon walked to the window and looked out at the city below. The streets were full of preparing for the royal wedding. I have killed many enemies, Hoon said slowly. I have conquered worlds. I have never felt fear. He turned to face. But when you walked out of those caves, I felt something. Not fear exactly. Something worse. Doubt. Said nothing, he just listened. My whole life I believed that power was everything, Hoon continued. That the strong ruled and the weak served. That there was no other way. He shook his head. But you are weak. By every measure you are weak. And yet you survived something that would have killed me. I am not weak, said quietly. I am different. That is not the same thing. Hoon stared at him for a long moment. Then slowly he lowered his head. I came to apologize, the general said, for wanting your death, and to swear that I will protect you as I would protect any member of the royal family. Felt surprise wash over him. Why? Because strength is not just about bodies, Hoon said. You taught me that, and I am not too proud to learn. He straightened up. Good luck today, human. You will need it. Royal weddings are long and boring. For the first time laughed genuinely. Thank you, General. Hoon left and finished preparing himself. The ceremony took place in the great hall where had first met the Empress, but today it looked different. Flowers from 100 worlds covered the walls. Light streamed through crystal windows. Music played from instruments had never seen before. The hall was full of nobles, all watching as walked down the long path to the front. At the end of the path was waiting. She wore a dress made of woven starlight, or that was what it looked like. It shimmered and glowed with every movement. Her silver hair was braided with gems that sparkled like tiny suns. She was the most beautiful thing had ever seen. He reached her and took her hands in his, 4 hands holding 2. It felt natural now. The Empress stood before them. She looked at with unreadable eyes. Today we witness something new, she said. The union of and human, of our strength and their stubborn refusal to die. The crowd laughed softly. The Empress continued. When my daughter first told me she wanted a human, I thought she was foolish. Humans were weak, I believed, fragile, beneath us. She paused and looked at directly. I was wrong. A murmur went through the crowd. The Empress never admitted being wrong. This human has shown us something we had forgotten, she continued. That true strength is not just in the body, it is in the spirit, in the will to survive, in the courage to face impossible odds and refuse to surrender. She raised her hands. Let it be known throughout the empire. From this day forward, humanity is not our prey. They are our allies, our equals, our family. Felt his heart pounding. He had come here as a prisoner. Now he was helping to change the relationship between 2 entire species. The ceremony continued with words and rituals that did not fully understand. But one moment he would never forget was when placed a ring on his finger. It was made of crystal and fire, solid but warm, and it pulsed with a soft light. With this ring I bind my life to yours, she said. Where you go, I go. What you face, I face with you, in darkness and light, in fire and cold, until the stars themselves die. Placed a simple gold ring on one of her fingers. It was his mother's ring, the only thing he had brought from Earth that survived the crash. With this ring I give you my heart, he said. I did not choose to come here, but I choose to stay. I choose you, today and every day after. The Empress raised her hands one final time. Let it be done. You are wed. The hall exploded with cheers and music. Threw her arms around and held him close. He felt her cool skin against his, her heart beating alongside his. We did it, she whispered. We did, agreed. Now what? Pulled back and smiled at him with joy in her silver-spotted eyes. Now we change the universe together. In the months that followed, everything changed. The Empire made first official contact with Earth. It was not an invasion as everyone had feared. It was an offer of alliance, trade, exchange, cooperation. Humans were suspicious at first, but when they heard the story of Han, the cargo pilot who had survived the fire caves and married an alien princess, suspicion turned to hope. Became an ambassador. He traveled between worlds, helping humans and understand each other. Traveled with him, curious about everything, asking endless questions. They faced challenges. Some still hated humans. Some humans feared the aliens. Old prejudices did not die easily. But slowly things improved. Doctors shared their healing technology. Human engineers taught new ways of building. Artists from both species created things that neither could have imagined alone. And at the center of it all was a simple cargo pilot who had never wanted adventure. One night he stood on the observation deck of a ship, looking out at the stars. Stood beside him, her hand in his. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked. "Being captured, being forced into all of this?" Thought about it. He thought about his old life, his boring roots, his small ship. He thought about everything he had lost. And everything he had gained. "No," he said finally, "I do not regret it." He turned to face her. "I used to think I was nobody, just a pilot, nothing special, but you saw something in me that I could not see in myself." He touched her face gently. "You made me believe I could be more, and for that I will always be grateful." Smiled and leaned into his touch. "You were always more, you just needed someone to show you." They stood there together, watching the stars spin past, two creatures from different worlds who had found each other against impossible odds. Behind them the universe stretched on forever, full of dangers, full of wonders, full of possibilities. And somewhere in that vast darkness, humanity was no longer alone. They had allies now, partners, family. Because one small human had refused to die. And that had changed everything.